fellow campers, van lifers, and other outdoor enthusiasts. Hey, welcome back to another one of my videos. Thank you for joining me once again in my adventures in my camper van, Mountain Bluebird, and also my van build, which is what I'm going to get into more now. On December 31st of 2016, I picked up my brand new 2016 Mercedes 4x4 Bear Cargo Sprinter van in 170-inch wheelbase. And I went over the next year or two building it out into an incredible camper van with an electrically lifting queen bed, a full bike garage for 4 to 6 bikes, standing up with wheels on, in a tray where skis and everything can go in there and all the water can get melted out the back. I have full 80/20 cabinets, so all the cabinets and everything are made from aluminum and HDPE facing. There is no wood other than on the countertop and a couple of the drawers, which I'll get into more on my construction and build of that in a future video. Today I'm going to go through one of the most scariest things you can do to any vehicle, and that is cut some really big holes into it. And especially with a brand new $60,000 vehicle that you just picked up, putting some essentially 2 by 3 foot holes in the side of the vehicle that are pretty much unrecoverable if you mess it up. So I'm going to get into how to cut in the windows, roof fan, and do other penetrations through the floor and walls for the various things. And I'm going to give some suggestions on doing that. So here we go. First step, of course, with anything when you're really cutting it, and that's measure many times and make sure your not only dimensions are absolutely correct, but also that they're in the right place. And I always like to, before I make any really significant cut, particularly in the side of a big wall, or in this case the van, is have at least one other person validate all those dimensions and locations. Fortunately, with the Mercedes Sprinter vans and also the Ford Transits and even the Dodge ProMasters, there is for the most part an outline on the inside walls and the metal and the framing for where most windows can fit. But today there are many other window options and dimensions, and so they won't always line up with these, and sometimes the internal framing of those walls will conflict. So it's one of the things you really have to check many times and make sure that your window or roof fan or things like that will actually work in the space that you're planning to put it, and make those adjustments as needed before you go make that cut in the wall. When that moment comes to make that cut in the wall, make sure you have all of your tools handy, everything set up. As you can see here in some of these photos, fold and or grab the metal panel. Make sure people are wearing gloves. This is sharp metal you're dealing with. Make sure that your tools have really good blades on them that are appropriate for what you're cutting. Tape the area around what you're cutting with some painter's tape or other protective tape to prevent scratching from something like a jigsaw rubbing alongside it. And also be very much prepared for a lot of noise and vibration, as these metal panels vibrate a lot with a jigsaw blade or even a nibbler, an electric nibbling blade. And so just be prepared for that. Even have hearing protection, make sure you have eye protection, and have certainly other hands standing around to help and hold, even just dampen the vibration on the metal walls. Many hands can make a much more comfortable, easier job getting done well and done right, and feeling a lot safer about it. The next thing is to make sure you start small with holes drilled in the corners, and then do straight cuts between those holes, and even do a radius cut for things like C.R. Lawrence windows afterwards if that's what you need to do. It definitely helps to start with those small holes, and of course make sure you have outlined exactly where those are going to go. You can put holes in the opposing corners and then just cut straight lines between those 2 holes, and you can be done for those more square cuts. Make sure to also collect and contain and remove any cut metal debris. Clean it up on the ground. Make sure you clean it up not only on the floor of your van, but also within all the little cavities inside the walls. Is that metal debris that's in there can definitely create rust later on, and it's hidden inside those wall panels. So you want to make sure you vacuum all that up and get it all, make sure it's all cleaned out, or even seal up those areas before you cut so that no metal debris gets in there. And also make sure that once you have done cutting, to seal around all the cut edges with a zinc rust inhibitor paint. They can be painted on by spray paint or the brush. And so make sure you do that to prevent any potential rusting of those edges. And if you do need to, if you have any rough burrs or anything like that, make sure you smooth those out with a file before you go and paint it, so that you have smooth edges and no sharp burrs that are going to catch on something or create a bad seal. I'm also going to give you a couple of suggestions here. One is make as few holes as you can. Obviously, that sounds really obvious, but this is particularly true both in the floor and the roof or the ceiling. In the roof and the ceiling, it's kind of obvious because each one of those can make a potential leak into the van, and so you want to minimize those. That's the main reason to minimize those. I was able to get over 10 different electrical circuits up to my roof through one single pass through, and I posted a video or a couple of videos with different information on those that you can watch and get more information as to how I did that. Here is a picture of the main pass-through with all the wires going or circuits going through that. Another suggestion is also minimize your holes through your floor. This one's a bit for a different reason. It's one because the floor is the main structural component of your entire van. It is what is welded to the frame of your van. It creates part of the frame of the van. It creates the structure for the walls and the ceiling. So it's vitally important to the structure and the flexing your whole body of your van, which you don't want it to flex much. That will weaken cabinets and wall panels and things like that, or even create leaks and things like windows and stuff if you have too much flexing going on. So you really want to minimize that. You don't want to cut big holes or drill big holes into your floor. Really just minimize the locations and the size of those holes to just absolutely only what's necessary. And always, before you drill those holes in the floor, make sure that there is no wiring in the way. There is no frame rail. You don't want to drill into or through any frame rail or any other significant structural component. You want to make sure that you're not obviously drilling into anywhere there's a brake line or a suspension component. Or anything else like that. So make sure you really check your locations. They are very difficult to do through the floor because the bottom of your floor does not look the same as the top of your floor. And so you will have to be very careful with the way you do dimensions and measure things out, and really check that multiple times to make sure you got it right. In my Sprinter van, and also in a Dodge ProMaster and a Ford Transit that I've helped others do work on, drilling through the floor was challenging because, like I said, not everything lines up. So really do check that in many ways. On the roof of the van, it's actually, there are these ribs on all the roof fans, and unfortunately the roof fans really want a flat space to mount to. There are adapter plates that are available that go right over these that have been 3D printed or CNC cut, and that'll help you get a nice level mounting location for your fan or position or surface for your fan, and really seal it up well. Those are a great way to do. They're made out of a plastic. Impact 3D makes those. Hein over there has done a fantastic job with those. I have used them and did use it in my van. Some people do form these out of plastic or out of wood. Wood certainly is a risky one because it will or can rot over time if it gets any water. So be very careful about that. I really like the Maxxen Deluxe for its controls and remote, its ability to be able to use in any weather. It could be raining, you can have the fan going, and it's perfectly fine. You won't get any weather inside. So that's the one I used here. As far as the windows, I use Sierra Lawrence because those are about the only windows that were available for the Sprinter van at the time. But fortunately now, there are also many other window options available for most of the popular vans, or for really any van. Just make sure before you buy those windows to really look through the installation manual to make sure you feel comfortable with installing it on your vehicle, and that you have all the parts and tools and the right depth for the wall thickness that you're going to need, and any trim also around the walls. And in a future video, I'm going to go over my interior fit out, which includes, of course, the insulation and the wall panels and the way I trimmed on the windows, which is very difficult to do on the interior of these vans because of the curved walls. And that's one thing you have to remember, is that not only are the walls very curved, much more than one thinks. In the Sprinter van, it's about a whole foot between the floor and the ceiling that they curve inward, but also the roof curves. And these are compound curves. They are not consistent radius. So they are challenging to deal with. So you have to make sure you have everything in place before you make any cuts and insulation of windows and so forth, that you have all those parts and things ready to go. Also, when you do go to install something like a window, it's a great time to install something like a security plate over the vent windows, as I have done here, and I've done another video in the past on that as well. The great news is you're pretty much done with about the worst or one of the hardest parts of your whole van build. After that, a lot of things are get much easier, and there's a lot of good information available and also support. The great news is, after you make these really big cuts in your van roof or walls for windows and fans, but before you pat yourself on the back when you get your windows and fans installed, make sure that all of your sealant has dried, that everything is sealed up well. And the way you test that really is to get a hose and really spray it down well, and even let that water puddle up on the roof, and really just douse it with water from all directions, and have someone in the inside watching for any leaks or looking for any leaks anywhere. And if there are, make sure to correct that immediately, get it resolved, and so you don't have any issues down the road with any sort of water leaks. The great news is, once you have these windows and fans and stuff installed, you're going to enjoy the beautiful view out these windows and the ventilation from these fans for years to come. And so it is wonderful, and you will not only appreciate every time you look out those windows, but also it'll make it a lot easier as you're doing your van build to have this light and ventilation now from the windows and the roof fans that you can open up while you're doing your build out. So it's not only tricks for that too. And so please do subscribe, and I look forward to sharing a lot more with you in future videos. And by all means, don't be afraid. Just before you cut big holes and stuff in your van and put windows in, just go ahead and really be methodical about it, pragmatic, and you will accomplish it. Another tip I'm going to show you in a future video is also how one can run electrical and plumbing underneath the floor of the van, crossing it from left to right side without having to go underneath the van, which can be a real benefit to doing it that way. So I look forward to sharing with that with you future videos. So with that, get out and enjoy your van and have adventures, and I'll talk to you soon.